It's kind of funny though, like to watch everybody just like freak out over like, the most like minuscule news as things move forward.
Yep.
It's just hilarious. Like there must have been 50 different, transactions over the past 2 days in my dynasty leagues. And it's like, guys, this is dynasty. Like, what are y'all doing? Like, stop the madness.
That's the thing. When you get to now, it's dynasty football. But at this point, you're kind of playing redraft, especially when you think of how your waivers will run, the players you're acquiring. You're pretty much playing redraft for the season, unless you've got some like long play, right? So all those last second, like we were just talking about, the last second moves this season in the actual NFL seem to be slower, but there's more action this year, right, leading up to kickoff. In fantasy football, it's like a weird switch. People have too much to sit on. They're too antsy.
Dude, it's just so funny to sit there and to watch it progress and watch it just get even more and more antsy and more crazy with it. I absolutely
great for us.
Love it, man. I love it. You ready to kick this show off, man? We're about ready to get started. You ready?
Do it.
All right, let's hit it. Ugh.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Chase Vernon.
Woo! Yeah, what's going on, guys? Welcome on into another episode of Fantasy Intervention. We are almost here. We are going into week 1 of the season, and I am stoked. I cannot wait for this to go down. Man, we're going live into fantasy football discussion right today. We're going to be live through them, and I'm sure we're going to get plenty of questions, so keep those questions coming. But I could not do this alone. I had to bring in my buddy, Tavis Tipple. What's going on, Thomas? How you doing, man?
Yo, happy to be here. I'm ready for this fantasy football discussion. I'm ready for it. Let's go.
They get kind of crazy. Now, normally they get a little bit crazier on Wednesday nights. That's like our main show. But I figured we could actually kick it off with a Tuesday night fantasy football discussional intervention. Yeah, let's go with that.
I like it.
Did that flow?
It was lit.
Yeah. I'll take it. Anyways, we're going to be discussing some of the waiver wire pickups, before week 1, some of those players that you guys might have left or let fall down your drafts, and into the waivers itself, because there are some unbelievable ones based off of the ESPN rankings that I saw. I don't know what y'all are doing out there, to be honest, but it's a little bit crazy. Also, we have, I guess, some news. So I want to kick that off.
Yeah.
We got the Le'Veon Bell signing over there for Baltimore, and you're a big Baltimore fan. So I'm going to let you kick this one off. I'm going to let you talk about this one. Let me know what you're thinking about this Le'Veon Bell signing.
Well, I would say that if the Ravens let Le'Veon Bell tote the rock more than 5 times in a game, I'm probably going to be throwing things out my window because he's done washed. He is washed. This is a waiver wire show. Don't spend fab on him. Okay. Just don't. I think Chase is going to hit the player that you actually need to be spending fab on, because that player looks like they can still play football. Le'Veon Bell looks toast. I'm good. That's held the button in the toaster. It's a little too well done.
Dude, sometimes toast can be good though. Like I like toast, man.
Not burnt toast.
No, not
Le'Veon
burnt.
Bell's.
You didn't say burnt
just
toast.
Scraping the burn off of the toast with him. Like it just no thanks. I'm done.
I don't know, man. I kind of want to take a shot on him in some of the deeper leagues. Now, if you're in a league that drafted 15 players, like, no, stay away from him. But in a deeper 18 to 20 man league, I don't see anything wrong with that. What if he does come in and take over that second running back role?
Then they're like Lamar Jackson's going to end up getting like 22 carries a game because they're going to realize that they're better off that way. They'll have Huntley come in and play quarterback, and they'll just play Lamar Jackson as a single back because it would be better for their team.
No, that makes plenty of sense. And we will actually get to the next piece of news. But real quick, I want to keep these questions coming from fantasy football discussion. So Travis is in the chat. And Travis wanted to know Edmonds or Mike Davis for the flex position this upcoming week in PPR. And
this week?
Yeah, we're going to be looking at the Atlanta Falcons up against the Philadelphia Eagles, or we're going to have the Cardinals up against the Titans. And honestly, I don't really like either one of those matchups. I mean, when the Eagles' defensive line is healthy, they actually have a good defense up against the run.
Yeah.
Mike Davis is going to be facing a tough time. Now, this offensive line is a little bit healthier than they were last year. I believe they have 2 starters back in their lineup. But yeah, I'm not loving this whole Falcons situation. I think it's going to be a very pass-heavy game. It's actually one of the ones that I'm attacking for DFS. I think I might lean Edmonds. Now, they did bring in Bud Dupree from the Steelers, right? They added Janoris Jenkins, but that defense is pretty much depleted over there for the Tennessee Titans. They're rebuilding very similar to like what the Vikings did last year. So I'm expecting not as much of a defensive battle as we might have seen in previous years between the Cardinals and the Titans. I think I'm going to go Edmonds on this one.
Yeah, and that has to be the play. Look, we don't know enough right now to really attack defensive matchups, but the way it's looking is Tennessee's going to be like a top 3, top 5 team to target each week. So if you're left with those really tough questions on, kind of a 50-50 play, the worst defense is where I'm going. And for me, it's Edmonds. He's going to be PPR spam. You could see 6 receptions from him in a game, and that's enough in your flex, let alone anything else on top.
I like that, man. They have so many weapons over there for Arizona this upcoming year. I mean, when Rondale Moore is the 4th guy on your depth chart behind Christian Kirk, like that's just an indictment to how good this team could actually be this upcoming year and how much they could pass. So Kyler Murray is obviously somebody that I was targeting all off season for drafts.
And indicative of how bad of a coach Kingsbury is for letting Rondale Moore sit behind Christian Kirk on the offense, but that's a whole nother story.
That's literally a whole nother story. I do have Rondale Moore's side note. I have Rondale Moore projected to break the rookie receiving record. So I'm excited to see that moving forward, to see if we can actually get to that point. But I do want to bring up one more thing. Have you heard of Thrive Fantasy, Thomas?
Of course I've heard of Thrive Fantasy.
It's the sick site where they actually have these over-unders, right? So I'm looking at a couple of them right now. I think I posted one in fantasy football discussion a little bit ago. But Thrive Fantasy had Alvin Kamara at 71.5 rushing yards, over or under that. I want to hear in the chat to know what the chat thinks of this, because the under's been the primary hit on this. I mean, you get 115 points if you go with the over. You only get 85 if you go with the under. The obvious goal is to actually hit the most. And with fantasy football discussion, Thrive actually gave us a promo code to where if you actually go in, right, you can play in a free contest, which we've plastered all over fantasy football discussion. If you guys go to the top of that page, you can actually enter into the free contest and place your own bets. You actually will win cash, and you'll win a free trophy to Trophy Smack if you end up placing in this contest. So with that being said, go to the top. If you enter in promo code Marcus, right, because we all got to beat Marcus in fantasy football discussion. But if you enter in promo code Marcus, they will match your deposit up to $100. And then they're also, if you do it before Thursday, they'll give you a free Thursday matchup, the one of the $1 million slate, the $10,000 slates, and then also a Sunday ticket as well. So go check that out, thrivefantasy.com, enter in promo code Marcus, and you'll actually be able to get your bonus matched or your deposit matched, and then also be able to enter in this free contest. But let's go ahead and talk about why this is important, right? Because 71.5 rushing yards, Alvin Kamara has only hit that in 25% of his career games. But Latavius Murray just got cut. Now, we talk about Jones, right? And Jones was, one of these guys that has been on everybody's radar because guess what? Like Sean McVay actually, I'm sorry, not Sean McVay.
Peyton. I got you.
Sean Payton, Sean Payton, right, has been talking about him since before the preseason even started. And then once the preseason hits, he was all about him, right?
Well, he torched Baltimore. And he torched Baltimore's ones. At that moment, I went and picked him up in every league I possibly could.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I mean, he looked phenomenal in this offense. And so he kind of surpassed Latavius Murray, but now that Latavius Murray's cut, everybody's freaking out. Oh, Alvin Kamara could be he could touch Christian McCaffrey's, touch percentage. Like he could be up there at the top of the charts. I think that was already going to happen if it was, right? Because he was already named the RB2. So Latavius Murray really had no, effect on Alvin Kamara, at least in my perspective. How did you feel?
No, Latavius Murray was on his fast track to out of there, kind of as soon as you saw game action. So for me, he didn't really affect Alvin's outcome for me at all, especially in week 1. Like I'm playing that over myself, actually. Yep. Like Murray doesn't even factor into that. It's just Alvin's the only proven guy there, and they're going to want to protect 5-pick Jameis in the first week. So yeah, I'm smashing that. And also remember, Green Bay was kind of dog water at stopping the run last season.
Dude,
so you can put bad. 2 and 2 together.
They were hot dog water, bro. They weren't just dog water. They were hot dog water.
Yeah, they were dog water pops for sure.
Dog water pops.
Yeah, they made Montgomery look like Adrian Peterson. It was gross.
All right, so that's crushing the breaking news. We're going to answer this next question. Keep your questions coming, by the way, guys. Keep your questions coming into this chat. We'll keep answering your questions throughout the show. After we answer this one, we will be hopping on to some of the players that you might have missed at the tail end of your drafts. So first one is, this next question is going to be, is it reasonable to play Devonta Smith up against the Falcons defense in the flex?
Smash the button. Yeah, easy money. Falcons are so bad.
Now, this one's a little bit tougher for me, right? I believe it's going to be Moreau that's going to be playing on the outside over there on one side. And the Falcons defense, they weren't good last year by any stretch of the imagination, but they were especially bad up against tight ends, and they were also bad up against receivers in the slot. I don't think that Devonta Smith is going to play in the slot at all. He got 0 slot snaps in the preseason. He was playing on the outside the entire time. Meanwhile, Quez Watkins played there about 65% of the time, or 65% of his snaps. Meanwhile, Greg Ward, I think, played there almost 100% of his snaps as well. So I'm looking to attack the tight ends in this matchup. I'm also looking to attack the slot receivers. I don't hate Devonta Smith, and I still think that he's going to be relevant this week as a flex option, but I think it's going to be safe to temper your expectations. I don't see him getting, 2 touchdowns and, 80 yards or something along those lines. I could expect a touchdown with like 40 to 50 yards receiving. So if it's PPR, I'm going to say yes. If it's not PPR, I'm going to say look to your other options, pending what you have on your bench.
Yeah, and it is flex, right? So it's all team dependent. But if you want the opportunity, like I have him for 8 targets in this game, week 1. That's what I'm expecting. And if he does get that, if he catches 4, 5 balls, 70 yards, maybe a score, you're smashing that on your flex, and there's room to go there. I think Smith is definitely going to hit that flex option for you, I think, pretty comfortably. He's not like an iffy flex play to me.
Well, just hopefully, Jalen Hurts' completion percentage can come up from 50% last year, right? So that's the way that we feel about it. If you have any other questions about that, if you have another flex guy that you say, hey, would you rather play him over Devonta Smith? We'll answer that for you. But let's go ahead and dive into some of these players that you might have missed on your waivers or towards the tail end of your draft. Yes, PJ Kennedy. Yes, Smith is the alpha in Philly 100%. Not going to disagree with that. And we'll get to this question after we get through the quarterbacks. So these are players that I pulled up on ESPN that are rostered in under 50% of the leagues on ESPN. All right. I'm going to name 3 quarterbacks. I'm going to give a little bit of a brief thing. Stop me when you don't like the quarterback that I name, or you have a quarterback that you would have above him. The first one that I'm going with is Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins, right? He's a guy that, hey, maybe you're streaming a quarterback. You just need a safe option, right? Because I stream quarterbacks. I love streaming quarterbacks. He's a safe option, right? And he's somebody that can actually get you to that 18-point barrier that you actually want to hit consistently from your quarterback position, pending your scoring, obviously. But I'm feeling that they're going to have plenty of opportunities to score, with Dalvin Cook being the main proponent over there up against Cincinnati in week 1. Kirk Cousins, though, will still see red zone opportunities. He will still see deep targets in which Cincinnati struggled to defend last year. So Kirk Cousins for me is that one guy that if you don't have a quarterback with a great week 1 matchup, you don't feel great about what you're doing. Maybe you didn't even draft a quarterback because, hey, that's what you do. You stream tight ends. Kirk Cousins is the first guy on this list for somebody that needs a safe floor with an okay upside. How you feeling?
Yeah, I don't mind Kirk Cousins at all. I think streaming him is the only option. I don't think week to week you can rely on him. I think that a lot of things had to happen last year for Kirk Cousins to throw 36 touchdown passes and barely make it into QB1 conversation in 6-point touchdown leagues. That's kind of shows the Konami style taking over. So, but this week I think it's totally fine and reasonable. The weapons are healthy outside of Irv. I think that they may not tote the rock 30 times with their stud RB week 1. I think this would be a good option. It's a little iffy given Cousins' history with slow starts. So if you believe in narrative street, be wary. But as a streamer, easy play.
All right. So how do you feel about my quarterback 2, Jameis Winston? Because it's like they forgot that he was actually good for fantasy football. Like, yeah, he wasn't a great quarterback for professional level, but okay, he was good for fantasy football if you streamed him back in the day too for a couple of years, if you knew when to play him. It is, the Packers defense, right? Which is a little bit tougher up against the pass. We talked about that with, Alvin Kamara being able to run on him, but guess what? Alvin Kamara can still catch passes out of the backfield. Jameis Winston doesn't target the running backs too heavily, but he doesn't really have too many options in this game. So I think that Alvin Kamara will be a focal point of this offense as they try to focus the run. But if Green Bay focuses on taking the run away, we could see Alvin Kamara have a big game in the receiving area. Meanwhile, Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, those are both big play receivers. Jameis Winston could actually put up a 30-burger relatively easy if you're playing in 6-point touchdown leagues. How you feeling about Jameis Winston? Do you think it's too far-fetched? Do you think 3 touchdowns seems like it could be in the realm of possibilities with 250, 300 yards? How you feeling about this matchup?
See, I'm avoiding Winston in super flexes, even as a QB2, and in one QB league streaming, I'm kind of avoiding him as well because his weapons aren't what he had when he was that stud quarterback play. Now, when you mentioned he doesn't target the running backs often, but last year in the one game he came in and finished, Alvin Kamara was a definite target. That would be really good for him, but I think Winston's gonna have to score from outside the 15 because I think inside the 10 it's gonna be the Taysom Hill Alvin Kamara show.
That's one of the biggest things I'm afraid of. So
that's for that the Shark Tank. For that reason, I'm out.
That wasn't cheesy or anything, man. You're good.
I live for it.
Oh, man. All right. So let's go over my quarterback 3 really quick because I think that people just forget about him, and I think it's ridiculous. All right. Big Ben is somebody who thrives every single year. He was quarterback 12 last year in points per game. He has a great matchup. Now, the Bills did add edge rushers, right? They added guys that can get off the edge in the draft. They try to solidify their defense through free agency. But when it's all said and done, you have Tre'Davious White, who's probably going to be covering Deontay Johnson for the most part. You have Juju Smith-Schuster up against Teron Johnson in the slot. And then you have Claypool on the outside up against Levi Wallace, who gives up big plays. This offensive line is non-existent. I think that Najee Harris will be used in the passing game more than he'll be used in the running game, at least more efficiently. I don't know how you're not thinking about playing Big Ben Roethlisberger. I just don't get it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Why is he not making it to more waivers? He was one of the least rostered quarterbacks in this whole research thing that I did.
I think it's because people are so afraid of Najee Harris toting the rock 25 times like the offensive lineman said in the preseason. Look, don't take your fantasy advice from offensive linemen that want to run the ball in preseason. Don't do that. Ben Roethlisberger is probably the safest of the quarterback streamers this week because Buffalo, as good as Pittsburgh's defense is, Buffalo's going to score whether you want them to or not. So Ben's going to have to go toe-to-toe with Big Allen. So he's definitely a safer play. I think the safeties in Buffalo are going to limit and help that Claypool issue. So I think he's still going to feast in that short yardage scenario. But I think it's pretty safe that, if you're streaming a quarterback, Ben should easily be one of the guys.
All right, so let's go ahead and hop into one of these questions. And honestly, this is a duo because the question is, would you rather have Tua or Zach Wilson for QB2 this week? And this is a duo that I never really wanted a share of, like, each one of these guys separately for my quarterback twos, because guess what? You're playing in the AFC East. So there's a chance where you can end up having, Tua up against New England, like we talked about, and then another tough matchup because the schedule for the AFC East this year is somewhat difficult for quarterbacks. It's not the hardest one, but it's somewhat difficult. So you have my sleeper defense of the year up against the Jets and Zach Wilson. They are my sleeper defense of the year. I think they have a chance of finishing top 3, top 5. They reinforced the defense tremendously in free agency. They drafted heavy again, on defense. I mean, it's ridiculously just like this revamped defense. And this defense is putting up 30 and 40 points a game because they're turning turnovers into touchdowns. They're scooping the ball up and they're scoring, and they're working as a team like special teams would work when they do get a turnover. You're seeing, broken play after broken play on the defensive side when they turn it into offense. And it's exhilarating. And if you watched it last year, you loved it. You loved Carolina. And now they go out and, like I said, they just reinforce the entire defense with good veterans, with great rookies, with early draft picks. Again, last year they spent all 7 picks on a defensive player.
I know.
This year they go out and still invest in defense. So it might take a little bit for this team to come together.
Mm-hmm.
But come on, like, this is going to be a good defense. Then you have Tua up against New England.
Yeah.
You have Tua. I can't play Tua up against New England. They have all their defenders back from COVID. Half of them opted out last season. The only good side is Stephon Gilmore. He's not active, right?
No, he's out for 6 weeks, I believe.
Yeah, so he's not in. So maybe that's the shining hope that I would go with here.
Mm-hmm.
But I did some research the other day, and it's only like 6 quarterbacks in the past 10 years, something like that, actually got more than 30 passing attempts in their first career game. So I don't think Zach Wilson's going to pass very often. If he scores, it's going to be through very, very high efficiency. And yeah, I think I'm going to have to lean Tua slightly on this one, but this is tough. I
disagree with you hard here.
Ooh,
I disagree with you hard because Tua's weapons are decimated. They're gone. Like Fuller's not going to be there.
Not going to be there week 1.
Waddle's injured. Parker's trash. Gesicki's iffy. They're going to run the ball. I don't want a team whose offense hasn't had time to settle in and then go up against a more than likely pissed off Bill Belichick in week 1 with time to prepare. I think his record for having multiple weeks of preparation is absolutely ridiculous. I would feel more comfortable taking
That's
Wilson.
Andy Reid.
Belichick's too. Wilson at least has his weapons healthy. They have practiced. They're in rhythm and they have a goal. So if I'm taking a shot at my second quarterback, I think that the game will be better for scoring with Carolina and the Jets, which is weird to say for the first time in forever. I would take Wilson for opportunity's sake rather than Tua, who's got a beat up offense.
I'm just going to add one more thing to this, and then we're going to move on because I don't want this to last forever. You obviously have a show tonight, so you have to run at some point. But
we got time.
Tua should have better field position than I think Zach Wilson will have. It should give him more opportunities to score. And also, New England's bend but don't break defense up against the running backs should allow them to get close to the red zone, giving more shots to Tua. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I think we're splitting hairs here at this point. We'll go with one more question. I do have 3 more questions on the board right now. We'll go with one more for now. We're going to hop on to the running backs, and then we'll get to the other 2. All right, so we got Josh Herbert. I think he meant Justin Herbert.
Yep.
Or Trevor Lawrence in week 1. Trevor Lawrence actually has a really sick matchup. What does he have? Houston, I believe.
Houston.
That's
easy.
Sexy.
For me,
meanwhile,
yeah.
Justin Herbert, like, he's up against Washington, and that's that revamped secondary who just added William Jackson. I mean, when your secondary cuts Jimmy Moreland, that's a pretty good indictment that your defense is good. I'm sitting there and I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence this week. I know I just talked about how rookie quarterbacks don't pass that often, but this could turn into somewhat of a shootout with a bad Jacksonville defense, a bad Houston defense. It could just be a really, really bad game overall. And if I had to lean with anybody, I'm actually going to go James Robinson, for my stud of this matchup. But Trevor Lawrence should at least give you a very, very good floor with an even better upside.
So I think with the Houston, they have two pretty solid outside corners in Houston. It's actually kind of a strength for them. But in the slot, I think you're going to see someone like Visca absolutely dominate this game. And you saw it when they played against the Cowboys twos, which is kind of how Houston's ones look, if you really break it down. And what Trevor Lawrence was able to put up in that time, in that short time, I see no reason why he can't do that week one out of the gate. I'm easily leaning Trevor Lawrence. I on our show last week at the Full Tilt Dynasty pod, I said the Washington football team was going to win the Super Bowl this year, and it'll be on the back of that outrageously good defense. I want to avoid them while they're all healthy.
I agree with you 100%. Justin Herbert's not an option for me to play in almost any format, to be honest with you. In fact, if I have a one quarterback league, I'm probably looking to stream, one of the guys that's sitting there on my bench. I guess, if you have two quarterback leagues and that's nobody, you don't have anybody else, and that's a whole different story.
If you still want to play this game, you could probably stream Tyrod Taylor and probably end up with a better game than Justin Herbert, honestly.
That's very true. All right. So we do have questions coming up, guys. We will get back to those, but I want to go ahead and move on to the running backs that some of those, people might have missed at the tail end of their drafts, and one of them's a no-brainer for me. I'm just going to come out and say it, like, instead of trying to build up on this. Tevin Coleman. Like, he's only owned in 19.7% of the league, and he's the starting running back for the Jets. Like, he's a starting running back. This offensive line is a revamped offensive line with a couple studs at tackle, right? Like, you have a system that thrives. The running backs thrive. Like, you have people drafting Mostert. You have people drafting Sermon, right? You still had people drafting Hasty a couple months ago before, the news broke that he probably make the team. Gallman, you were drafting 4 running backs. 4. Before you drafted Tevin Coleman, who was the starting running back in the same exact system that just moved over to the Jets. It makes no sense to me why Tevin Coleman is only 19.7% owned.
Yeah.
They will run the ball just as often. Tevin Coleman's been with this system now for 4 or 5 years, albeit half the time he was injured, but he's still been with this system.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think it's the injury. I don't think most people think he's going to make it through the first game because he's snake bitten them so many times.
That's very possible, and he could be washed. But why would you not at least have him on your roster for week 1 just to see what happens?
Well, Michael Carter is questionable. Michael Pirine is questionable. I personally don't think either of those two are that good anyway. And then the only other real touch competition is Ty Johnson. Like, you can see a 60-40 split right now.
Yeah, it's crazy to me.
Yeah,
like, just see what happens. See what the touch is. Tevin Coleman should be rostered everywhere, and he's only rostered 19.7% of leagues on ESPN. That is crazy.
And you'll get him for free pretty much. I mean, really. What do you spend? 1 fab, maybe?
You don't even need to.
Yeah.
You don't even need to because he's sitting there in 80% of the damn leagues.
Yep.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's move on to my number 2. And this is one of the ones that I was debating. I was going back and forth with right? Because actually Tony Jones is actually rostered in slightly too many leagues, I believe, for him to count in this.
Yeah.
So I decided between a guy that I've been vouching for this entire offseason. Yeah, exactly. And another player who, is one of the guys that you're on. He's on your team and he's making strides right now, but that's Tyson Williams. Williams over there. I don't know how he's only rostered in X amount of leagues, but he's the second he's the second running back on a team that is extremely run heavy, the most run heavy team in the league. Obviously, you have Lamar Jackson over there. Obviously, you have Gus Edwards over there, and then they just signed Le'Veon Bell, which made me question it even more. However, this guy looks solid in limited amounts of work, and even all you need is the volume. They have a good offensive line. Like, trust me, I'm not huge on volume. I don't like Najee Harris having a ton of volume just to have volume and being drafted that high. But when you're getting a guy for free, you're not paying any fab for him. You're not getting him. He's just sitting out there on your waiver wires. Why not get a guy that's going to see some sort of volume? Because Gus Edwards ain't going to take, 80% snap share. It'll be 65-35, okay? It's not going to be stop it. Either way, they're still a very efficient team. Last year, Gus Edwards probably saw 35% snap share, right? Somewhere around there. And guess what? He was still relevant in certain weeks. You could play him in certain matchups.
Oh, he has standalone value, yeah.
Yeah, Tyson Williams will have standalone value with handcuff value as well. I don't like drafting handcuffs. I like handcuffs that actually have standalone value. So I'm on board 100% with Tyson Williams being rostered at the back end of your rosters, especially for team or for leagues with 18 people on your team or more.
Right. I think part of the allure with him is he going to take the Dobbins role? Is he going to take the Dobbins role? Then Le'Veon Bell takes the Justice Hill role, gets his 3 or 4, totes a game, and then Williams is getting up with 12 to 13. That could definitely happen. Now, I don't see that because I think Harbaugh wants to win, and I think they're smarter than that, and I think you'll see an 18 carry base for Gus Edwards week to week, but in the situation, the Ravens running back room is apparently cursed this season. For some reason, they went to the Conjuring House to do preseason, and they're all cursed. But yeah, I think he's worth the pick, especially for free.
The other aspect of this is the fact that, like, hey, this is a 17-game season now. We're adding an extra game on there. You need to keep your running backs healthy. And that's why I think a lot of these players who had dominant snap shares are going to come down at least 10 to 15%. Especially this next guy, right?
Ooh, yeah, here you go.
All right, CMC, has been seen in 95% snap share, something insane, in the games that he's completed all the way through up until last year, where he saw an accumulation of injuries. How many different injuries did he suffer? 3, 4, 5?
Well, I know
he sat out for 2, but
shoulder, ankle. Oh man, I think there was another one too, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, for the shoulder for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a handful of them, along with what he sat out for as well. Don't forget about the ones he sat out for. But anyways, Chuba Hubbard, right? He's available in 14.5% of leagues. He showed us in the preseason that he can have explosive plays. He can actually be a good running back with a limited snap count. I believe there's independent value there up against bad teams. But then you go and you turn around and you look at what his value could be if CMC goes down. And I think we could see way better than what Mike Davis produced. I think he's a better player than what Mike Davis was last year at this time as a rookie with fresh legs. Well, somewhat fresh because he obviously played a ton in college. But, I think that he could step into a role. He can catch passes, right? He can end up dominating a snap share. I love Chuba Hubbard moving forward. He's one of my favorite running backs to roster at the tail end of my teams. Is Chuba Hubbard number one non-nookie to you? Are you fucking with Chuba Hubbard at all?
Well, I've tried to trade for him in multiple leagues, and people keep telling me to kick rocks. So obviously, he's a much loved player in the dynasty community, especially with having a soft spot as a fellow Canadian. We all love Chuba, and yeah, you want that Carolina Panthers backup. I remember Reggie Bonifant was a waiver ad in 2019. Mike Davis was 2020. Why can't it be Chuba Hubbard in 2021? It should be Chuba Hubbard in 2021. And I think that I get that the idea of handcuffing running backs and taking handcuffs can be kind of murky. I think, as you alluded to, the extra game, this could be the year. Hey, Puppo, this could be the year that the handcuffed running back can actually really help you win. And if he does miss time, Chuba's dynamic.
Chuba is dynamic, man, and there's so much to get there. What if CMC's count goes down to a 70%, 75% range? And Chuba Hubbard does see 25%, but in games where you could see the Panthers blowing out the other team, Chuba Hubbard might end up getting all the fourth quarter carries.
Yep.
It is a very realistic possibility. You could play Chuba Hubbard up against the Falcons if this happens.
Right.
You can play Chuba Hubbard up against possibly the Saints if the Saints are bad. Because these teams will be up and they'll be winning. And now you'll have a guy that has standalone value with handcuff potential.
Right. And when you're looking at waivers and backup running backs or running backs to play or a sneaky flex play 1 week, you want to look at the basis of a couple of things. You want an offense that's good. Okay. Carolina checks that off. You want a player who's athletic and can do it on his own and make people miss. Well, Chuba Hubbard showed that against Indianapolis when he ran into a giant wall of men and then took off for 60 yards down the field.
Sexy.
He can do it on any play, and we've seen that he has hands. He literally checks every single box that you want to check onto. There should be no reason he's still sitting on your waiver wire. Deep leagues or not.
Chuba Hubbard
He's one of the few people that has legitimate league winning upside that you can pick up off your waiver wires today.
Thank you.
Right now.
That's what I was about to say. That's exactly what I was about to say, is he can win you a trophy. He can bring you home a belt, like a big, beefy belt. I'm talking about like one of those belts that's like, weighs like 15 pounds from Trophy Smack, or like one of the trophies that's like 6 feet tall from Trophy Smack. Dude, those trophies are sick. And if you go to trophysmack.com right now, or you click that link that's in our description right now, you can actually go to Trophy Smack. You throw a belt in there, you throw a ring in there, and you enter in promo code CIRCLE for, of course, to join our Circle crew. Shout out. But you enter in promo code CIRCLE. They'll actually give you that $60 ring for free. I'm not even kidding you guys. Like, I'm talking about a legit belt, a legit trophy. Go to trophysmack.com. When you go to checkout, make sure either a belt or trophy is in there with your $60 ring, and you'll get that $60 ring for free. Go check it out, trophysmack.com. It's badass. I'm not even kidding you guys. It's so sick. Ian Hart's going to stop talking about it. You could. Oh, man.
You can just get Chuba Hubbard on the nameplate and give him the props he deserves.
All right. I'm getting a little bit too hot and bothered right now. I need to stop the Chuba Hubbard talk.
Okay, I'll fine.
All right. Well, let's go ahead. Let's say it again. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about two rookies here. This is tough because you have a tough matchup with Jalen Waddle up against New England. And this is where I'm a little bit indecisive, because Bill Belichick does a great job at taking one thing away. And for the Dolphins, I feel like that could actually be the running game over the passing game. Yeah, I don't think they're going to take away the deep passes, because they might not believe that Tua can throw a deep ball. So what if they allow Tua to throw deep and they take away the short options, the short outs? They take away Mike Gesicki, right? They take away the running game and they force Tua to throw it deep. Jalen Waddle could end up having a 2-touchdown game for 160 yards. We saw Marquise Brown do it in his rookie year, right? Like, I mean, it was the first game of the season. He ended up going off because they didn't think that they would be able to throw it deep, and they didn't believe in Marquise Brown. I'm thinking that Jalen Waddle could be that threat. So if you need points, let's just say you're projected to lose by 15 points or something. You had a bad injury. You drafted Cam Akers early in the offseason, right? Ugh. And you need this big upside. You need some big upside. I think that I would go Jalen Waddle. But if you just need a few points, you're projected to win, or you're projected to have a close game, I think I'm going to leave Devonta Smith for the safe side of things.
Yeah, I'm leaving Smith too. Look, we don't know who the deep option is going to be in Miami. We want to say it's Waddle, but we thought that with Ruggs in Oakland and last year, and it didn't work out because Ruggs may not even be the best deep threat necessarily. His speed, I think Waddle's speed is best utilized short. So if that's what they're going to take away, I think it could be Parker that's getting the deep shots where Waddle could be used, which is what we saw before he went out in that preseason game. He was catching the short balls and moving it down the field. Now that's fine. That's okay. But I think you're going to want to roll someone like Devonta Smith, who, as I mentioned earlier in the show, is going to have that target locked in, that production, and again, better matchup.
So real quick, I do want to remind people too, because I forgot for a brief second. Week one, Fuller is out.
Yeah, Terry, you're totally right. You're totally right. Will Fuller is going to be that guy, but he's not there week one.
So yeah, I'm going to lean. Like I said, if you want a safe option, I'm leaning Devonta Smith. Jalen Waddle is the other go-to guy. Now we got our next question: Allen versus Pittsburgh or Rodgers versus New Orleans. And I actually have this Pittsburgh game being a lot higher scoring than what most people have it, or I'm sorry, a lot more passing attempts or plays run than what most people have it right now. And I think it could actually break certain things. Meanwhile, Rodgers up against New Orleans. New Orleans lost Janoris Jenkins. Devontae Adams should have no problem dismantling Marshawn Lattimore. I think that both these options are good. And honestly, I don't know how you got either one, but the difference for me is the rushing upside that Allen offers. I think I'm going to lean going Allen versus Pittsburgh because I think he's going to have more chances to accumulate points. And it might get to a point where, hey, Jameis Winston just threw 2 interceptions to start the game out. We're going to have to run the hell out of the ball, and it's just going to grind clock. And you're only going to see Rodgers with 2/3 of the amount of offensive drives as Allen would have.
So for me, I'm going Rodgers, and I'm going Rodgers because A, he's pissed. 2, he no longer degaffs. Like, he does not care at all. He's hit that level. You're going to give me a pissed off Aaron Rodgers to open the season. I'm taking that every time. I'm just not betting against it. Pittsburgh defense is healthy, and they've been the top fantasy defense. I mean, the highest sack total defense anyway, the last couple of seasons. I want to avoid it in a matchup if I have the chance. Don't get me wrong, Allen's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a win-win situation. It's not a bad choice for either one. All right, so we're going to hit this one more question. We're going to hop onto our wide receivers because we're closing in here on our limited amount of time. Do y'all think about Trey Sermon? Is it too early to have him starting?
No.
I like Mostert for this matchup. Mostert's one of my biggest DFS targets. However, It's Detroit. It's Detroit. Like Sermon could end up going in the fourth quarter and having the fourth quarter to himself the entire quarter, and see 12 carries in the fourth by himself.
Yeah, just the fourth. I think Sermon's a lock for 15 touches this week. I'm 15, playing him for sure. Total touches, yeah, I think it's a lock.
Well, I think what was last year? Was it McKinnon and Mostert that both had great week ones because they had a great matchup? I think it was those two if I remember correctly. But
and they let Gallman walk, right? James is still hurt. Hasty's kind of meh, right? Sermon's been invested in. If you're gonna play him, this is a great week to do it. Again, Detroit is not good.
Yeah, if it was any other team outside of Detroit, I would say pause on that, or at least hesitate. But yeah, I think you can start him out up against Detroit. However, for week 2, I don't know if I would run him out there or not. I don't know what the schedule is. But all right, so we got our wide receivers that people might have glossed over. And the big one for me was Elijah Moore because of Jamison Crowder, and rightfully so. Jamison Crowder last year was, a target hog, and he was a target hog, and Crowder, could end up starting in that role. That's just how they kind of roll things out over there for the 49ers, now moving over to the Jets. But at the same time, Crowder's out now with COVID, and he has not been listed as a participant yet. There's a good chance that Crowder won't play this week. If he does not play, I think that you have to pick up Elijah Moore. You have to. He's only 40% owned. And as we look forward, he's one of the 3 receivers who are starting for the Jets. He's listed as a starter right now. So he's got a tough matchup. And this is why you got to go with him, right? Because whoever gets him, if he goes off in week 1 up against the Panthers, which, Panthers are a little bit tougher, but their secondary is still kind of spotty. If he goes off against the Panthers, this is his matchups after that. The next weeks 2 and 3 are tough. He's got, I think it was New England, somebody else. But then following that, he has Tennessee and Atlanta. You could see 2 more weeks of him going off against Tennessee and Atlanta. 2 more weeks where you can't play him. But then against Cincinnati, Indianapolis, the Bills up against Teron Johnson. Then he has the Dolphins, which is, not the best matchup. But then the Texans and the Eagles. That's a sick schedule. And if he hits and he gets the volume out of the slot that this coaching staff likes to call, and he gets these misdirection type deep passes where Zach Wilson is extremely accurate, man, I'm loving Elijah Moore as a guy who could absolutely explode. And even if you don't want to keep him on your roster, maybe you want to trade him because he has those 2 tough weeks, you could get some good value. You could get some good value for him. Excuse me.
Yeah, look, all the talk about him is that he's the next Antonio Brown all the way through camp, and then he was hurt a little bit through preseason. I can understand why he's not rostered as much as we might want him to be. But at this point, again, if he's on the waiver wire, you're getting him on the low. Get him on the low now. Mims doesn't matter, right? Crowder could easily be phased out of that offense. You want the big splash play. You want the splash play. You're talking about a guy who's 92nd percentile in his 40, and you're talking about a guy who's 98th percentile in his agility score. This guy, when he gets the ball, he is going, gone. That's the kind of opportunity you want off the waiver wire. Ceiling, not floor. And so far, Zach Wilson just rips it. That's the play you're looking for.
Love it, man. Love it. I'm on board. We don't need to talk anymore about it. What we do need to talk about is how the hell Gabriel Davis, and Emmanuel Sanders are 12.8% owned and 15.9% owned. Because, and by the way, I would get it if you thought that, Emmanuel Sanders, like half the people thought Emmanuel Sanders was going to be the guy, right? And then half the people thought that Gabriel Davis was going to be the guy. So you saw a 40% ownership. But in the teens, for the number 3 wide receiver, arguably the number 2 over Cole Beasley, possibly. Like that's just crazy to me why these two guys are in the teens for ownership. You're talking about one of the most prolific passing offenses going into 2021, and yet the 3rd wide receiver is barely rostered. And whether it be Gabriel Davis or Sanders, I like Gabriel Davis, way more than I like Sanders, because I think
Big time.
when you have a quarterback who targets his wide receiver 30% of the time is actually like a contested target, like that means that you trust your wide receiver to make a play on the ball. You don't see that often. Like you see quarterbacks targeting open receivers. You don't see quarterbacks just giving, back shoulder fades since Aaron Rodgers did it with Jordy Nelson. Like that just doesn't happen. But yet Josh Allen trusts Gabriel Davis more than probably any other quarterback throwing to any other wide receiver in the league. I've never seen such a highly contested target rate. It's nuts. So like if he loves this wide receiver, he played last year with this wide receiver down the stretch. And by the way, this wide receiver gave you double-digit points in 3 out of the last 4 games where he saw a high target percentage or a high snap percentage. Like Gabriel Davis should be a lock.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3 on the season written on him. So to have him on your waiver wire seems kind of silly. It is silly. 8 touchdowns is kind of where I've got Gabe Davis right now. And if you can pick up 8 touchdowns off the waiver wire for free, come on. Don't wait too late. 1 week, 2 weeks in, it's too late. You're trading for him now. And then it kills all the value for him season long. You want to get him now before he goes out there and balls. If you didn't do it already after watching Josh Allen throw ropes to him down the middle of the field, like effortlessly, you're already behind the 8 ball. Get ahead of the game and get him now before it kicks off.
That's crazy. 12.8%.
It's insane. It's crazy.
And by the way, I think I said that he did 3 out of his last 4 games with double-digit fantasy points. It was actually his last 4 out of 6 games.
Yeah.
All right. So
sick.
Tyrell Williams, we don't need to spend too much time on because this is a bad receiver and a bad offense. However, he is the wide receiver 1 in this offense. He's known for making big plays. He should see plenty of opportunity with negative game script, right?
Yeah. Look, Tyrell Williams was really good for me in 2019 when I could use him. He was fantastic.
Look, Mike Peterson literally in the chat, like as we're discussing this.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I think he's fine. Nothing like don't expect much. Eventually, Mummy's alive himself. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to show him his worth, and Cephas as well. But for the first couple of weeks, there's no reason why you can't go and pick up Tyrell Williams again. 0 fab bid. Pick him up.
Go flip him. Yep. Go pick up Tyrell Williams. Let him have a game or two where he gives you 8 targets, 10 targets, 12 targets, because he's going to have to get that amount of targets for this offense to even be alive. So yes, I think that Tyrell Williams should be rostered in every single league out there, and yet he's rostered in very few. All right, so let's answer some of his questions, and then we'll finish out with the tight end position.
Do it.
We're going to start out with Dustin Coleman's question. Hope I said that right. Coleman. Looks about right. I think Murray will go to Buffalo, and that's actually a pretty good landing spot for Murray. I was a little bit nervous that he would end up with Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up because I think that he would destroy all of Tyson Williams' volume or his whole entire role. Luckily, they got Le'Veon Bell instead of Latavius Murray. But either way, I don't find Murray to be a viable option anymore. I think we've seen the best days of his. He could get some goal line carries or something along those lines, but I don't think he's going to beat out Zach Moss for a job. I don't think he's going to beat out Devin Singletary for a job, and I think he's going to struggle to beat out Matt Breida. Wait, did Matt Breida get cut? I don't even know.
No, for me, it's the Chargers, right? Because they need help in the running back room. He's that veteran behind Eckler. If Eckler goes down, I think they would love him much like they loved Balaj last season. I think Murray could provide the same thing. I think Murray last year finished at like 5.5 yards per carry, which I don't like yards per carry is like a notable stat, but it gives you an idea that he could still go. And his yards per reception, I think, was over 7. So he can fill that role for a couple of games if and or when Eckler goes down. I don't think they have that on the current roster. I think Murray oh my God, I almost called him San Diego. In LA for the Chargers makes a lot of sense. Or the other LA team, the Rams.
Or or the Raiders, because they already have Josh Jacobs. They just signed Kenyon Drake to a $12 million contract. Then they bring in Peyton Barber. Why not just bring in Tavis Murray too?
They do love aging, slow, and unathletic running backs, so it could work.
I mean, it just makes too much sense. All right, so let's see. All right, next question. Leave Claypool in versus Buffalo or put Pittman or Devonta. Consider swapping Mostert in the flex too. I love Mostert in the flex. I think Mostert's going to have a massive game up against Detroit. I think they're going to pull him by like the fourth quarter. However, I do love Claypool up against Buffalo. Levi Wallace has a tendency to allow big plays. He doesn't give up a ton of them, but he does give up 1 or 2 big plays a game to bigger, more physical and faster receivers. Meanwhile, if Claypool goes on the side of Tre'Davious White can't guard a guy who has size and speed. Like he can't. Like he struggles so much. Just go back and look at DK Metcalf in coverage from Tre'Davious White. It's a massacre. So
I'm worried about over the top with Claypool because they still have Hyde and I believe they still have Poyer, which is going to help. I would pivot to Mostert myself. It's Detroit. They're terrible. San Francisco's going to win that game by 40 points. If you, again, ceiling, right, in the flex, you want ceiling, Mostert can easily break off 2 big ones, and that's all you need to win your entire week right there.
Yeah, and
I would go Mostert.
I actually have Mostert having the best floor. Claypool's ceiling, I think, is just as high as Mostert, but Claypool's floor is actually super low. If Buffalo can get pressure onto Ben Roethlisberger with this bad offensive line, I mean, we're talking about some issues getting the ball downfield. Meanwhile, Mostert doesn't have anything hindering his production. I'd go Mostert.
Yeah.
All right. Wide receivers, I got 1, Jamar Chase. Or Mike Williams in the flex. I'm not playing Mike Williams.
Ever.
I'm just not doing it this week, especially because Mike Williams in the flex could be a lot of trouble facing up against Saint Baptiste, right? The bigger, more lengthy cornerback over there for Washington. I don't think it's going to be a good game for Herbert. I don't think it's going to be a good game for any San Diego Charger. You want Jamar Chase? That's going to be risky. Like, it's going to be risky, but at least it's a somewhat decent matchup. I'm going Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I want Chase because the Bengals are going to throw the ball 40 times, and there's no way Chase drops 10 of his targets. So I'm going to go Chase.
He begs to differ. All right, we got Callaway or Devonta Smith, half-point PP or half PPR.
Easy call for me. I don't know about you, but it's Callaway. He's going to get force-fed like 14 targets this week. So,
man, but he has Jair Alexander, possibly the best cornerback in the NFL.
That's fine. It's still going to be 14 targets.
Yeah, I'll take Callaway as well. I think Devonta Smith has a better floor than Callaway does, but I mean, what you just said, it just makes a lot of sense unless they just pull the ball out of Jameis Winston's hands and they decide to run it 40 times this game.
Yeah.
So, I'm on board with that. Gabe Davis just got picked up and went for Tyrell Williams. Yes, that's the right move. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Yeah, I think we're pretty much done with these questions. Let's go ahead and hop on to the tight end.
I have Callaway finishing as the wide receiver 15 in points per game until I've projected Michael Thomas comes back. So it's a smash to get him late in drafts.
Yeah, Mike's a smart dude. He's going too early in all my drafts now. I don't even have a chance.
Opportunity to cost is completely swapped on him. All right, let's do some tight ends.
All right, we got my biggest one, the guy that I've been pumping out nonstop for 3 or 4 weeks now minimum. Tyler Kroft is going to be a big, big thing in fantasy this year. Tyler Kroft is going to smash faces. Now, it might not happen until week 4, but if he does it in weeks 1 through 3, you're not going to have a chance to grab him week 4 because weeks 1 through 3 are very tough matchups for him. He's got Jeremy Chin up against Carolina, 2 more tough matchups following that. But after those tough matchups, he's got the Titans, he's got the Falcons, he's got the Bengals, he's got the Colts, he's got the Bills, he's got the Texans, he's got the Eagles, he's got the Jaguars. Those are all startable matchups for an offense that utilizes the tight end heavily. He's the only active tight end on this roster unless they brought somebody up off the practice squad over the past couple of days. They traded away Herndon. They love Tyler Kroft. This is an offense that made George Kittle. This is an offense that had Jordan Reed, the ghost of Jordan Reed, relevant. The third string tight end for the 49ers was relevant. I don't even remember his name right now because that's the type of system that operates around their starting tight end. It is extremely, extremely sexy system for tight ends. And Tyler Kroft looked great in the preseason. The coaching staff loves him, which is very, very important for play calling purposes. And he's been nothing but reliable so far in the offseason and in preseason. So, or as we look forward. So I'm loving Tyler Kroft. What are your thoughts? Do you like my pick on Tyler Kroft or not?
Picked him up everywhere I could after the last time we saw Zach Wilson in the playoffs throwing 2 touchdowns early. And Zach Wilson likes tight ends dating back to his time at BYU. So Tyler Kroft is a smart pick. I mean, in Ryan Griffin 2019, you don't need much, right? Ryan Griffin in 2019 had multiple games as a tight end 1. You don't need much from that position. All you need is opportunity, and that's exactly what Kroft gives you. He's not the athlete. He's not a super great receiver, but he's going to have the opportunity, and he's going to get targeted, and that's what's going to matter, especially for a waiver wire pickup. I love it.
All right, before I go through my last one, I got one more on here that I think is a great week 1 flyer. I think it's one of the best ones that you can actually run out there just for week 1 purposes. But before I do, make sure you guys go check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/fantasy intervention. Once again, that's youtube.com/fantasy intervention. If we helped you out in any way, shape, or form, please go visit youtube.com/fantasy intervention and hit subscribe. It goes a long way for us, even if it's just 1 subscription. You guys can also go find all of our content at fantasyintervention.com, along with all the platforms that we're available on to listen to watch as we stream, and everything along those lines. So, look, we got Hollywood Titan on YouTube right now coming in the chat, of course, as we get to close out this episode. Thomas actually has another episode to go to. So, Thomas, real quick, what show are you going to? Where can they find you on this next show, and where can they find you in general?
Well, look, you can find me as my name shows up here at the bottom for the audio listeners. You can find me at Thomas Simple FF. That's over there on the Bird app, the Twitter, as the kids would call it. Look, you can find all of my work at fulltiltdynasty.com. You can find it all on YouTube at Full Tilt Dynasty. You can find it at the Dynasty Vipers Network on YouTube as well. But immediately after we take off from here, you can catch me on the Fantasy Walkabout with my mate from around the world over there in Australia, Tom_Lee92, where we hone in on what true value is in fantasy football.
Love that, man. Absolutely love it. Appreciate you for coming in, helping me out with this waiver wire show. We will be here every Tuesday in fantasy football discussion at 8 o'clock. Appreciate you guys for listening. My last guy is Jared Cook, and in 22% of leagues. Washington secondary, I already told you I don't like any of the wide receivers for the Chargers. I don't really like Austin Eckler this week, although I think he should still be started as he's a stud. He can catch passes, although the dose score for Washington is super, super low. You really don't want to play pass catchers up against him. But either way, outside of Eckler, I think that the biggest hit could actually be Jared Cook. Landon Collins struggles to cover tight ends, especially tight ends that run the seam routes and get upfield. Meanwhile, Cameron Curl, Jim Reeves, all these guys are not good safeties for coverage up against tight ends. They've faltered multiple occasions. That's why Washington finished out as the defense 20 up against the tight end for at least DraftKings stats. And they really didn't play anybody. They were playing the likes of like Blake Jarwin, right, and Evan Ingram. So, when you don't play tight ends and yet you're still bad up against tight ends, that's a huge indictment. Jared Cook could see plenty of beautiful deep balls from Justin Herbert. And if I'm streaming tight ends, I'm locking Justin Herbert into that stream spot. Thank you guys once again for listening, and thank you all for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life. We'll see you tomorrow at 8.